The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. At that time, when Jesus came into the district of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do men say the Son of Man is?" And they said, "Some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter replied, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." And Jesus answered him, "Blessed are you, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my Father who is in heaven. And I tell you, you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades shall not prevail against it. I give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." The Gospel of the Lord. I don't know if you've ever seen that little display thing with the two balls, and as one goes down, it hits the other, and the first ball stays stationary, and the next one goes up. And it's a bit strange, but it works. The one hits and stays absolutely still, and the next one goes. And you can get 3 or 4 of those little balls, and they do the same little thing. And that's the image I have of Peter and Paul. Two very different people, different temperaments, different backgrounds. Peter, a fisherman who had a business, and he was up in Capernaum with his wife. Paul, unmarried, an intellectual. We have some of the greatest writings from his hands and heart. And yet these two people were chosen and worked together. Chosen in two very different ways. One person, Peter, who knew Jesus throughout his ministry, who fought with Jesus, who cried with Jesus, who was forgiven by Jesus face to face. Paul had none of that. He just had his incredible passion for doing what is right. He did it in the wrong way before the Damascus experience, but after that he was so totally focused, as Peter was. Peter and Paul. Peter and Paul. And yet these two men became the pillars of the church in their diversity. What I find amazing is that Jesus didn't choose the one that we might have chosen, the intellectual one, the one who was more savvy of the world. No, he chose the person who was a fisherman, not the intellectual, not the one with a family background that would have given him credibility in some circles. No, he chose Peter. He chooses people who are able to understand their dependence on him. So often, people with title and power and money forget that they are dependent 100% and totally on God. We need to have an incredible knock, as Paul did, to fall off our high horses, as we say, for us to be effective in the kingdom. But that doesn't mean to say just because we do not have the skills that other people see are important, that we are not called. Peter and Paul. Peter and Paul. When we look at our own world, we have a lot of Peters and we have a lot of Pauls. But are the Peters and Pauls of our world working in sync? Are we able, like Peter and Paul, to focus on what really matters and not on the peripheral things of where we are, where we've been, what education I have, or what privileges I have, or what gifts I have, but rather to allow the focus of Jesus, of all humanity being saved, the Peter and the Paul. Some days I can be Peter, some days I can be Paul. But what is important is not if I'm Peter and Paul. What matters, as we see with Peter and Paul, is the focus of Jesus. How do we live our lives not comparing, not with jealousy, but focused on the kingdom? Because when that passion for what Jesus wants in our lives, as different and unique as they are, will become the unique experience. And then our faith will grow and our witness to those in the world will also grow. And that's what we are called to make disciples. Not to show ourselves as the best disciple, not to be Peter and Paul, but to make other Peters